Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Everyone doing well? Really? First session, everyone was so serious. Everyone in the congregation, all the adults. Usually you're smiling and things. First session, everyone was like udas, like they all got left at the altar this morning. I don't know, it was a weird vibe. It didn't throw me off too much, but it was kind of weird. So you guys are smiling at least now from the beginning. I'm glad. Yeah. All right. Sleep deprived, that's what it is for a lot of people. It's okay. Rest of your Sunday you have. So today we wrap up chapter 7 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. We had started that last time. Now this chapter is quite expansive. And the beautiful thing about this chapter is it starts our tatpada vichara, that understanding of what is that Ishvara, what does that Ishvara symbolize, and what role does that Ishvara play in my life. Now we come to a beautiful shloka that we start off with today, where in your companies now, it's end of the year, employee evaluations come out at this time, don't they? As a manager, you have to talk about what your employees, what they're good at, what they're bad at. For some of them, you struggle finding what they're good at even. It's hard to point that out at times, but you have to come up with something, right? The harder thing to do is a self-evaluation. Because if you are honest and you point out what your actual weaknesses and challenges are, your boss may notice these for the first time, and you have to face the effects of that. If you say that you're a great employee, you're doing everything right, you're so star-spangled awesome, that doesn't look genuine. So it's a difficult thing you have to do. Now, the purpose for these evaluations in the first place is to create a gradation of employees. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, so that when hard times invariably hit, whether it's next year or the year after, they know who to cut loose right away then, those bottom 3 or 5 people in each team. That's the real purpose they do it. Now, a judgment has to be made. The gradation, what is the highest to the lowest. Now, if we look at bhakti, because this topic of Bhagavan was what came up beginning of 7th chapter, explaining himself, who is this Bhagavan he's saying? At that time, one objection can arise. That is there a gradation of bhaktas in their fervor of bhakti? Is it there's a basic level and higher? Now, some people would bristle at even having this kind of gradation. With what kind of reasoning? That my relationship with my Bhagavan is my own business. I worship in my own way. I have that relationship myself. What is any other entity to gradate that or make any kind of designation saying it's a good kind of bhakti, low kind of bhakti? Who is anyone to say that about what my bhakti is? Bhagavan is the one that can say that. And here in this 16th shloka of the 7th chapter, very famous shloka, we see what are 4 designations given to bhaktas. So it starts, he says, Chaturvidha bhajante mam, Janaha Sukritinaha Arjuna. That there are 4, Chaturvidha, there are 4 gradations given of seekers that try to seek me. Because what did we see last time? At the beginning of the chapter it was said that there are many in the population. Out of all the people in this population, you look at the number of people who actually want to follow that Bhagavan, want to surrender to him, is a minuscule number. Out of the thousands, very, very few. Out of those who actually take the steps to surrender to Bhagavan, not just intention, actually going through with it, even fewer. Like in the summertime, all the beaches open up and they have swimming and all of this, right? One kid must have eaten, it's usually when they start getting cramps in the water, it's because they eat too much and too soon they go into the water. Like I was a lifeguard for the Boy Scouts growing up. I made 5 saves. All 5 were kids who cramped because they ate too much. You put the pole out and you reel them back in. So there's a story recently. There's a video of it too. The kid has a cramp and he's yelling, "I'm drowning, I'm drowning." Everyone there is freaking out and yelling about it. no one jumps in to save that kid. Everyone yells, someone should save him, someone should save him. It's like 6 feet of water. Anyone can go do it. No one wants to jump in, though. So surrender to Bhagavan it's a great thing to do. Surrendering is awesome. Everyone should do it. Will I actually surrender? That's a smaller number of people. That's why that designation of there are people that follow Bhagavan with respect, with love, with fervor, actual surrender to that Bhagavan, a much smaller number. He went even further. He said from those people, they can be scholarly and have all this knowledge. They can have undergone great upasana in that worship of Bhagavan. They could have gone through all of that process. But the ones who know me at my essence, in my core, that's an even smaller number. That just because I study this knowledge, just because I talk about this knowledge, just because I do upasana, does not mean I know Bhagavan in his truest form. Seems like a riddle, conundrum. So now here he goes through what are 4 levels, 4 different types of devotees that are there. First is artaha. Artaha is the one who only comes to Bhagavan in times of need when they're disturbed. The one who is dissatisfied. Or it's like Balvihar teachers. Every Balvihar teacher has at least 2 kids in the class. The only time they come to the teacher is to complain about some other kid. That's when they come up there. Just to say that, this person's doing this. Or the teacher may not have seen what happened, so to relay that information, you weren't looking. When you weren't looking, this kid did this. They'll come and say those things. Those kids grow up to become your managers, by the way. That's usually the role they take later on. There are those other kids who complain. They're the ones who start the trouble. But if you complain about the issue going on, you will be absolved of being a suspect and causing that crime. So they say, this happened right here. These kids become the CEOs of your companies. That's the rise that they go to. So we see it early on. Like that, the person reports to Bhagavan only dissatisfied. This is not right, that's not right, this is not going well. It's like when they go up in the space shuttle from NASA, they say, Houston, we have a problem. That's the only time they contact Houston. They never called to say, hey, how is it going? Have you had your chai? How are you and your kids? Never asking any of that, only Houston, we have a problem. Like that with Bhagavan, my relationship is, I never profess any gratitude to him. Never stuti or vandana saying how great you are, Bhagavan. Never that give me what I deserve. It's only complaining. This went wrong, that went wrong. Where were you for me in this situation? Why did you abandon me here? We go with that attitude. Artaha, lowest type of devotee. Second type of devotee, he says, jignasu. The one who is a seeker of what? This knowledge. That's why they pray to that Bhagavan, that let me get this knowledge. In a systematic way, they want the knowledge. Meaning it's not just altu-faltu kind of, I studied this book a little bit here, watch this video, that's how I get knowledge. They're serious seekers about it. In a systematic way, meaning first they go through the prakarana granthas. What are those introductory texts into what this knowledge is? After doubtlessly understanding that, a foray into something a bit more cryptic, the Upanishads. With their pithy statements, what do I understand from there of what my true nature is? Practicality of that, going through Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The crystallization of the philosophy of the Upanishads, along with practical sadhanas, pitfalls to watch out for, growth and progress, what are the qualities to maintain, all of this we find clearly in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And then they'll go for the systemized study one step further, Brahma Sutras. Those 555 aphorisms given to us by Bhagavan Sri Vedavyasji, which whenever there are apparent contradictions in the Upanishads, when it comes to the theory of creation, or sadhana practices, or what is the locus of this ignorance and avidya, all of these deeper topics reconciled in the Brahma Sutras. That comes for that advanced student, way down the line. Now, the person that wants this kind of knowledge in that systematic way, a lot has to go my way. A lot of things out of my control. Because many people will say at the end of this year now, especially when it gets to December, the 2 kinds of resolves they make for the next year, one is a physical fitness resolve, which falls away by end of January. The other resolve is, may I grow spiritually, giving more time to the study, things like that. This systematic study requires consistently and time for it. How many of us have access to consistency and time? There's 1,000,001 things going on, and feels like we're barely keeping up with each of these things. Now, where's the time for Shastic study and all of that then? So even being able to have that opportunity for this systematic study, we have to have a lot going for us. And a normal person would say we have to have luck going for us. But you are not normal people, you are Vedantins. So what you should think is, it's because of punya done in previous lives, punya done in this life, that I may have that opportunity for that consistent study. Bhagavad Kripa has to be there for that. Guru Kripa has to be there for that. Atma Kripa, my own self-effort, has to be there for that. Jignasu prays fervently, may I please have that opportunity to get this knowledge. That is their one prayer. So a little bit better than that artha. Then jnani is one category. Actually, before jnani, let's do artaha, jignasu. Artharthi is another category. Artharthi is the one who seeks wealth. We've seen enough in our Puranas and Itihasas. Those that seek wealth in those great riches, through fervent prayer, that's achievable. Not just wealth in terms of the simple monetary gain that we get. Wealth also when it comes to power over others, influence. This is also a wealth that you can have. Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Baliraja. These are all examples of those in seeking that wealth, power, influence, have fervently prayed for it. As they ask, so shall they receive. Whether they use it the right way or not is a completely different thing. And we'll see later on in the 16th chapter of Gita how someone who is addicted to wealth, what kind of an effect does that have? Where as I go through life, one thing that we all crave then is to have influence. That if I say something, let that have an impact where others follow it, and let that thing go through, the idea, whatever I have. Now, in what aspect, at the end I'll take, in about 20 minutes after, in what aspect of my life is there an easy way to exert influence? At the workplace, for instance, will I have influence? After doing the grunt work and slowly, steadily rising, maybe at some point I have some influence. Within the family system, as a child, do I have influence? Even now, when you talk to your parents, do you have any influence on what happens? You listen to them still. You're 40s and 50s, you're still listening to what they say. The nature of our culture is also that way, by design. It's a good thing. So no influence there either. With your own spouse and kids, do you have influence? Don't nod yes or no. They may be here with you right now. Just blink twice if you're if there's no influence at all. Where's the influence there? As a kid, when your kids are little, then parents are their whole world. Once they turn 12 or 13, that comes crashing down. All of a sudden, you know nothing at that point. According to them, not me. According to your kids, you know nothing at that point. So influence on kids, also not there. Where is influence then? We go our entire lives chasing that influence. It's not there. To the point where, does my intellect even have influence over my own mind? That victory I even have to have, at least. Sometimes that's not possible either. So Artharthi, the one who tries for that wealth, for that influence, for that power, for those gains, they pray to Bhagavan for that reason alone. He says that's also one category. Then he gives the final category. Jnani. Jnani is that wise person. Now, why does a wise person have to pray in the first place? Because we saw last time, the worship of this Ishvara is for what purpose? To purify this inner instrument so I can understand the knowledge. In my timeline as a sadhaka, the point of this worship of Ishvara is to purify my mind. That person who is a jnani, has this knowledge, knowing myself as that Om beyond the vasanas, knowing that I am that supreme reality, they will not be like that artaha, dissatisfied person. Because they know they're ananda swarupa, what kind of dissatisfaction are they whining about? That's not their prerogative. Jignasu, seeking systematic knowledge, they have that knowledge. They've gone through that process. They've availed of Shastra, used it for the purpose that it serves. In his commentary on Vision of Bhagavad Gita, Pujya Guruji puts it as, there's an objection that comes up, Vedas dictate how a person should be. What do they say about that person who's realized? They don't say anything. The person is no longer bound by Shastra at that point. As an Ajnani, I must be bound to Shastra. At that point where the knowledge comes, nothing can bind that wise person. So Jignasu, they're not going to pray that way either. Artharthi, going for that wealth. When this person understands this entire creation is nothing but an extension of themselves, what is there to covet or seek in this world? Kasya svidhanam, it says in Ishavasya Upanishad. What is it they have to go after? So the wise person then prays for that one reason, love for that Bhagavan, that's it. That Bhagavan is the most sattvic entity that has any relevance in my life. Let me hold on to that which is most sattvic. No bargaining for anything less than that. Because think about it. In Bhagavan, the next shloka says, this person who is a jnani, they are the most dear to me, I am the most dear to them. Where sometimes we get paid compliments and we know that the person is full of garbage sometimes when they pay us that compliment. Especially when the compliment is a lie. I know one person, growing up here, you know people for decades, their first comment to anyone they meet is, oh my God, you've lost so much weight, is the first thing they say. People have been gaining weight for years, seldom anyone loses weight over the years, but that person feels like, oh wow, they're saying this. It's like, it's a total lie. We compliment others to get something from them, don't we? Oftentimes, that's one of the best ways to really, and we learn that as kids. They say, oh, dinner was really good today. It was really, really good food. Why? So that in 20 minutes they can say, I want to go with my friends. Can I have $50 today? As kids, we learn that. So like that, the other categories who are praying to that Bhagavan, they could be doing stuti of Bhagavan, praying ardently, chanting his names, and great shlokas, great pujas, everything, for that purpose of, I'm praying to you, so give me something. That jnani wants nothing in return. For that reason, he is the most dear to Bhagavan. Now, an objection may come up. Objection being, in the 3rd chapter of Gita, Bhagavan clearly said, there is no one whom I don't like, there is no one whom I favor over others. He said that, didn't he? There is no one whom I favor over others. Whatever comes to me as the results of my actions is due to my karmas. That's how it comes about. It's not that Bhagavan favors me. Then if he favors no one over anyone else, how can he say that the jnani is most dear to me? Think about it from a teacher's perspective. You may treat all the students equally. You don't favor one over the other. Isn't there still that one or two students that you feel, yeah, these are the most dear to me? Because of their potential, because of how they conduct themselves, because of how hard they work, they'll still be there. Meaning there's no favoritism going on. I'm not giving them anything extra, treating them differently from the others. But internally, there is that thing that, they are the most dear to me. That's the situation here. So now, Bhushanji, you had a question? Zor se.
Difference between intent, action, and motivation. Differentiating between those three, especially in the context of meditation and knowledge seeking and all that.
So difference between 3 terms? Yes.
So his intent was different. Action was pure.
So can I replace intent? Can I say inspiration instead of intent? That'll make my job a lot easier. Can I do that? No? It has to be intent?
Intent was always nice.
Okay.
His intent was malicious.
Okay.
But his action was pure.
Okay. So difference between 3 terms in this context: intent, action, motivation. What are the differences there? When it comes to an action that is done, there is a latent desire that makes me want to perform that action. I have the chart right here for that reason. From the V, the vasanas, those likes and dislikes compounded over lifetimes upon lifetimes, they create a certain personality in me in terms of tendencies, in terms of proclivities of actions I want to perform. All of that's there due to vasanas. That creates that very intent for what I want. Action can be separated from intent completely. I can scold a child with love, can't I? The intent is to make that child productive, to lead a better life for that child, therefore I scold. You would say, hey, you're yelling at a kid, how can that show love? No. Intent is to help them improve. From that loving standpoint, I'm scolding them. At the same time, if I want someone to fail at something, I can provide encouragement, can't I? Someone that I know is going to go on a stage and not speak well, for instance, or go on a diving board, completely fail when they jump into the water. I can still say, without being honest with them and saying, maybe this is not what you should do, I say, yeah, you go, you're great, you can do it. They go get embarrassed in front of everyone. Intent is to make them feel that way. Encouragement is still what I gave. So I'm giving these examples to prove the point. Intent can be diametrically opposed from what the action is. Action does not always reveal intent. Now, where does motivation fall into this whole thing? That for all those intentions that I have and the actions I do accordingly, what is that broader purpose I'm doing it for? What is that motivation? In a mission setting, for instance, motivation is serving his vision, Puja Gurudev's vision. That's the highest ideal as brahmacharis and swamins, and hopefully as a congregation, we are trying to steer ourselves towards that. Fulfilling his vision is that highest motivation. Within that, intent at a more granular level is there are different things to tackle at different times. If the intent is, for instance, I want to bring up our Balvihar teachers, empower them to teach well, empower them to be happy while they're teaching well is also. Not just them teaching well and feeling miserable because of the situation, they feel happy doing it. If the motivation is there, these intentions are smaller things that we have. What actions and steps do we take to make that happen? All the while, what's the role of motivation then? That even when intentions don't give good results, even when intentions may sway sometimes, because of my own wrong likes and dislikes, I may have malintentions at some point, that motivation has to stay constant as a baseline. That keeps inspiring me. I keep coming back to that. That has to be very clear for me. Does that someone answer the question? No?
From the view of Bhagavan,
Mm-hmm.
how does a Bhagavan differentiate intent versus action? Because again, I go back to the Hiranyakashipu example.
Mm-hmm.
The action is what Bhagavan looked at to grant Hiranyakashipu the wish,
Mm-hmm.
but he did not look at the intent.
It's not always that cut and dry, where if my intent is a certain way and my action is a certain way, Bhagavan will take both into account and just give me stuff based on my intent. There are certain prakriyas that are done. And this is from a Vedic standpoint. Certain processes that are done, upasanas, where my intent is not always chitta shuddhi, which is cleansing of this inner instrument. My intent can be, I want some monetary gain from this. I want a spot in Swarga in the next life. Any process I do, Vedic processes that offer these kinds of results, if I do that process perfectly, regardless of intent, I will get that thing. So that's possible to do. And in that situation, Bhagavan cannot differentiate them. This is the process that's there. But with that intention being bad, using whatever gift is given for the bad purpose will be there. The only inevitable conclusion is those karma phalas will hurt that person later on. Thank you for clarifying. That's the distinction there. Which is the segue to the next part of the chapter that we have here, talking about that Shraddha for Bhagavan as well. there's something beautiful about Sanatana Dharma when it comes to Shraddha, what we would naturally translate as faith. You look at a faith system outside of Sanatana Dharma. There is that divine entity clearly defined. My role is to completely surrender to that divine entity without any kind of doubts, without any kind of resistance. I have to completely surrender to that divine entity. And that is how I am saved from whatever peril awaits me if I don't. What does Bhagavan say in the 21st shloka, however? He says, whichever level of Shraddha you come to me with, I will take that Shraddha gladly. I will help you rise in that process. It's not that, oh, you haven't fully surrendered to me. You're only praying to me because you want money. Therefore, I'm not going to help you. Your intention is wrong. I'm not going to help you. It is that your Shraddha is at a certain point where if I pray to Bhagavan for money, for instance, that's still better than saying Bhagavan does not exist, isn't it? It's still better than saying this entity does not exist, has no relevance to me. At least I'm saying Bhagavan is real. He will give me something if I pray. That's a good starting point. From there, I can grow. So the doors of Bhagavan's temple are never closed to me. So some people say when we invite them for our pujas, come teach Bhavihar, come do these things, their thing is, oh, I'm so bad of a person, how can I approach Bhagavan? First of all, show me a place where Bhagavan is not there. Temples where it's infused, that's our community effect that we have there, that's where we commonly pray. It's not that Bhagavan is not other places. So bad news, buddy, but Bhagavan sees everything you do, not just at the temple when you approach him. That's first of all. Second is, where in our religion does it say that someone is not fit to be a bhakta of that Bhagavan? I may not be fit to perform certain rituals. I may not be fit for certain types of knowledge based on my spiritual maturity, but that prayer for Bhagavan, everyone has access to that. There's no one stopping that in any instance at all. Now, one other caveat Bhagavan gives, that with your level of faith, whatever devata you pray to with whatever intention, you will get it on that level. It's not like you'll get something much higher if you pray to for something that's on that lower level. Like there was one person who worked at a temple, a priest who would just mechanically go through the motions. One day, call it serendipity, call it an accident, whatever it is, he got Bhagavad Darshan. Bhagavan Shivji came in front of him. And he said, what do you want? You can have one thing. What do you want? The man looked around. Because we often want things. If someone were to ask really and say, you get one wish, it'll be fulfilled, what do you want? On the spot, it's hard to think of something. I don't know. So he was asked like that, what do you want? So he looked around. He was chewing some pan. The betel leaf was there. The lime he forgot. Chuna, he didn't have that. So he said, Bhagavan, I want that lime, is what he asked. See how sad that is? You could have asked for anything in that instance. But the mind is at such a basic level that what I need right now is that lime with the pan. Therefore, yeah, Bhagavan, I want that. It's a funny story, but the point underlying it is, if I want those lower things, if I pray for them, I may get them, yes. But is that where I stop? Do I want to grow from that level? So as much as Bhagavan in the previous shloka said, wherever your level of Shraddha is, I accept that, I'll make you rise from there. Immediate next shloka he says, if you pray for those lower things, that is only what you'll get. Meaning as much kripa as that Bhagavad kripa is there to raise me up from where I am, Atma kripa, my self-effort has to be there as well. My noble reasons for intentions, that's got to be there. Now, going further, what's another interesting point that we find here? Bhagavan goes through and says, seeing is not believing. Seeing is not believing. How do we surmise that? The foolish people, he says, think of me as Bhagavan only when I come into manifestation. Think about it. Even if we look at our Puranas, Itihasas as Hindu history. The immature look at it as a mythology. Those who understand say it's a Hindu history. Even when we look at it that way, we say all these avatars were in the past. There's no divine figures in front of us right now, Bhagavan reincarnating. Therefore, all of that is back then. This Bhagavan is not there for me now. That's the statement that's made. I mean, if it made its way into Gita as an objection, that's probably something made in vogue, that statement. What Bhagavan says is, those that only believe in my divine form when they see it, they're foolish. Those who are wise know, even in my unmanifest form, I am still the one that gives the karma paladatas. I am still that entity to be worshipped. That is what I am. He is giving that autobiography very, very clearly to us. And then he gives one seemingly cryptic statement here, but his meaning here is beautiful. Bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu veda na kaschana. That Arjuna, I am the one that knows the beings of the past, the present, and the future. Meaning, I am not bound by time. I am outside that time construct. Yet no one knows me, is what he says. Meaning, this is the most subtle thing to understand, this idea of what Ishvara is. That's why we spent so much time on discussing Ishvara. At the most basic colonial lens method of learning, because of that, we say that Bhagavan is some remote entity, guy in the sky, who gives me results of my actions. If I don't worship him, he hates me. If I worship him, he loves me. That's not what we're saying in Sanatana Dharma. We're also not saying that Bhagavan is some unmanifest entity, therefore the universe just resolves itself, Bhagavan plays no role in all that. We're not saying that either. What the Advaitic view is, when we do this Tatpada Vichara, that Bhagavan is that embodiment of that divine reality. And the place that this Bhagavan is functioning from is what we call Shuddha Sattva, pure Sattva. You and I as Jivas, the Sattva that we inculcate and we grow within ourselves, the highest we can get to is a Sattva called Malina Sattva. Malina Sattva is that Sattvic Amsha with shades of Rajas and Tamas still in there at all times. Bhagavan is not subject to Maya like you and I are. Bhagavan wields that Maya Shakti. Shuddha Sattva is what that Ishvara entity is. So with that understanding, in many religions, being God-fearing is a compliment, something to aspire to. Because Bhagavan will hurt me if I don't worship him, I worship, therefore God-fearing. And that my actions are done in accordance to what's right versus wrong, because I will be punished if I don't do it right. In Sanatana Dharma, though, the culmination of this knowledge is Abhaya Pratishtha. That I no longer fear anything, there is nothing to fear even. Therefore, God-fearing is not the greatest compliment here. For a bhakta, it is unconditionally God-loving, has to be that highest compliment. That's why the jnani is dear to that Bhagavan. There is nothing they are seeking or asking from that Bhagavan, simply loving for the sake of loving. Now, are there any questions on this topic? Because I'm going to move to something more structural now. Any questions on this so far? Now for the fun part then. Let's talk about January and going forward. The original plan we had this summer was that I'd be switching between Saket and Chitrakoot. The week I was at Chitrakoot, I'd teach there. Saket would have study groups during this time with all of you, discussing what was talked about previously. I'd give you questions beforehand. You would discuss them amongst yourselves. And then when I'm at Saket, I teach here. Chitrakoot, they do the same thing there, the study groups then. Then we thought, okay, people may not attend if it's study group time, because the hard part is in a study group, it can easily turn into one person's monologue in a study group. That may have happened, huh? We talked about not having influence in your own home with the spouse and the kids. So you're muzzled there. This is the place where all of that comes out then, monologue. You know, all the words that can't come out there, we finally talk here. That can happen. It's not a bad thing. It's dynamic. That's all it is. It's okay for that to happen. So that's one thing. Or people get super quiet in study group. The fear is, if I say something, what will people think? Log kya kahenge? I don't fully know this knowledge. I'm still talking here. You guys can do it too. It's okay. Swatantra. Have that independence. Have that courage. It's okay. This is a safe space where no one ridicules anyone for any mistakes or anything. We are all seekers trying to learn. That is the environment. So for those reasons like that, when people may not come, whatever, they may not be ready for the study group format, we said let's just do lecture every week and we'll cast it to the other center when I'm here or when I'm there. I'm thinking starting in January, and we'll go slow with this process. I don't want anyone to hurt themselves. We'll go slow. 40 minutes, I'll speak. Last 20 minutes, I'll give you 2 or 3 questions, split up into different groups, and I'll facilitate. I'll keep going with each group, and you discuss these questions. Why am I adamant about having the study group structure here? 2 reasons. Reason number 1. This kind of a format where I'm talking from a stage and you're trying to stay awake, that helps a little bit. At the end of the day, though, we only know how to see what we know and don't know when we have to express it ourselves. Because this can make sense when you're sitting there and listening to it. How does it practically apply to my life is the most important part of this teaching. That only comes out when we discuss with each other. And the different angles that come in a study group is amazing. This knowledge is the same. Everyone reads the same knowledge here, but based on your profession, based on your background, based on your experiences, based on your outlook and goals, your different perspectives when shared add so much to all of our understandings. Gurudev said that's the most beautiful part of a study group, where he valued that kind of a system so much. In camps that Gurudev conducted, he would have a mandatory study group time in the camp, where if you did not attend that study group, you were not allowed to attend his lectures later on. And people would object, saying, Gurudev, you come to our city only for like a week. In that week, let's squeeze every ounce of satsang out of you. Why are you wanting us to talk to each other? Why not replace that hour with just you speaking? That would benefit us more. He would say no. That in that reflective process is when these ideas actually bear fruit. That's where we understand what we know, practically making it make sense for ourselves. So that's the first reason. Second reason being, I'm still a young brahmachari. I've only been at this a few years. Okay? Like Swami Shantananji was here for our banquet yesterday. I calculated, if he helped me out on this one a little bit, if he graduated from his brahmachari training course in 1978, he's been working how long in this field now? 45 years. I've been at this 4 years, okay? You saw the difference last night too. That's there. Experience and vichar and everything makes a huge difference. For me to be a better brahmachari, to see what I'm saying is that effective, that comes to me through the study groups as well, when I hear what you share. That's a reflection saying, okay, maybe this topic hit a little harder. Slow down a bit. These kinds of questions are more relevant. That helps me along the way. I'm all about trial and error. Error, success. Error. That's the life of brahmachari. That's how it goes. That's how we learn how to teach the people. So for those reasons, starting next semester then, let's try it. 40 minutes and then 20 minutes, and slowly we build our stamina from there. And I'll go through different guidelines. All right? I'll end with a fun note today. Group discussions are like sports. I don't think I've shared that with this group before. Group discussions are like sports. One sport is bowling. The point of bowling is knock all the pins down. Like that group discussion, we have these topics with questions, knock them all down. Even if someone is saying something good, no, you stop. We have to finish through all the questions. They go through knocking down all the pins. That's one way of doing it. Doesn't help anyone, right? When we rush through it that way. Another way of group discussion is golf. in my opinion, and this is a joke as well, okay? Please don't hit me with your golf clubs. Golf is the most pointless game. 100%. Anywhere you can ride in a cart to get from place to place in that sport is not a real sport. That's for a fact. So in golf, what do? The hole will be all the way over there somewhere. We hit from here, hoping it will land somewhere. Same thing in group discussion. I make a point, I don't give a head or tail. Same thing in group discussion. I make a point, I don't give a head or tail of it, no noun, subject, verb. I just make a point, hoping it will land somewhere near the hole for the people to understand. That's one way of doing it also. Group discussion can also be like baseball, where my goal is to hit home runs. Where no one should be able to grasp what I'm saying, that's when I feel happy. That makes me tripta. Where I just say some highest, we'll be talking about something mundane, I just say Sachidananda. That's the highest point I think at, it goes all the way, home run. Another way of playing it is like tennis then. How do I win a point in tennis? Either I hit a winner, that guy cannot return my logic, or I wait till that guy hits the net with his logic and I say, your logic is wrong right there. Where I try to win the group discussion. This is not a primary debate. It's not about winning the discussion here. We all have to grow together to come to a conclusion. The right conclusion, at least. It can be like tennis at that point. Another type of group discussion can be like American football. American football, there's one quarterback. He has a myriad of receivers he can choose to throw through. Whoever he feels is fit for that, he throws it to them. Meaning, there is one Hitler-like person in each study group who dictates who will speak when, who will breathe when, all of this will happen. So he chooses who speaks when. Also not a good situation. The best sport for a group discussion is basketball. Basketball, we have one goal in mind. Pass the ball to get there. Everyone's pace is taken into account. That no one's straggling behind, no one's too far ahead. We understand what the goal is, passing it around, letting people give their perspectives, building on each other that way. That's the point of a group discussion. Or else it becomes frustrating being in that situation. Now, the whole reason why group discussions started in the first place in Gurudev's time was he would travel from city to city, and those people that wanted to keep that knowledge going when he wasn't with them, they said, what do we do? He said, do these group discussions, study groups. Now, one complaint came to him once, and this is in Journey of a Master. It's a beautiful part there. Complaint is, people are not attending study groups, but they're not coming anymore. How do we give a policy, strict attendance policy for our study groups? How do we do that? So Gurudev wrote that devotee a beautiful letter. What did it say? It said, yes, I believe your attendance problem is a huge issue. Here are the following ways to fix that problem. This is really his letter. If the excuse they give is sickness, that is not a valid excuse. Because if you're healthy enough to go to the doctor's office, you're healthy enough to come to our study group. Therefore, that will not be taken as a valid reason for missing study group. Death of a loved one will also not be accepted as a valid reason, he said. Right, what are you going to go doing at this point? Nothing to save them. At least come to the study group. We can all pray for that departed person. Some productivity will come out of it. He said your own death will be taken as a valid reason for missing study group. But at least give notice 1 week in advance of your death so that we can check if you've paid all your dues and subscriptions and all of those things. Because if you die, we're not going to get that back. Those of you who are group leaders, then, have the decency before your death, train someone else to take your position, tell them what it is, and then you go. Then absences during the class. In high school, we used to do this, right? If a class you don't like, you take the bathroom pass and you wander around the school for a little bit. He said, for people that are getting up and using the bathroom in class, that is disruptive to the other members. Therefore, from now on, we will institute a policy where you go in alphabetical order. A, B, like that. So if we don't get through all the letters in this class, don't worry. By next class, your letter will come. You just go use the bathroom at that point. So he had his secretary dictate this letter. Why? The reason was to be humorous and say, If people aren't coming to study group, that's not the end of the world. Even if there are 2 people present, that is still productive for this kind of vichara. And even if people don't come, you start something on these kinds of topics, that's how that satsanga works. So again, don't view this as a failure if people start kind of pulling away because we have this structure. It will be for the last 15, 20 minutes, but this is the next step in our progress then. And like I said, it helps me understand where you are all at with the teaching. It helps you express it, understand what you know well, what needs some more work as well. I only see benefits of this. So the first semester, straight one way. And you guys have struggled to stay awake, and most of you stay awake, so thank you for that. Next semester, we'll heat things up a bit. It'll be fun. We'll gain a lot together. So with that, when it comes to Balavihar then, I periodically ask you guys this. This semester, any improvement as the months have gone on with your kids wanting to come here? Has it gotten worse as the semester has gone on? What is your honest take right now? There are no wrong answers. What would you say? Yes. Yep. So what are the kids saying about Balavihar then? What are you feeling? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Interrogation. For sure, for sure. Yes. So what the parents' feedback for those of you in Chitrakoot, this applies to C2 as well, just like S2 is. These two are lower registered sessions, S2 and C2. Because of that, there are classes where, especially at the middle school and high school level, maybe only 2 or 3 kids in a class. And as kids tend to miss classes, if it's just you and that one teacher, you're on the spot like the entire time. It can get difficult. For that reason, so that they get that interaction, we've been combining the classes in these 2 sessions for the most part. Even then, attendance may not be as high, or that interaction may not be optimal. That's the reality of the situation. And so we've combined to take that into account, but even then, it gets difficult at times. All I can say is the teachers are doing their best, but I know when it's just one student in the classroom, that does get difficult, but even then, I'm going to be giving instructions soon saying that if it's just one kid, combine with the other class for that grade, for that day, and have more than one kid, because I know that gets difficult. So thank you. Yes.
So I think the Google form which asks about attendance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
My younger one would be like, I have to go today. Other than there is no excuse or anything like that because my attendance is getting enough.
Yes. Yes. So we have that policy of filling in that unexcused or excused absence form. Just to let us know why you're absent, and that gives us a better understanding of why kids are missing, when they're missing the most, things like this. Because at the end of the day, you guys are paying money for your kids to come here. And I don't feel content that kids are missing classes when their parents are paying their hard-earned money for their kids to come here. Parents are valuing it, but I know other things in life do come up, but have that priority for this as well. Because any other extracurricular, for instance, think about your kid plays soccer, for instance. If they don't attend soccer practice for a month, is your coach going to put you in the game for the next game? It's not going to happen. So here I can't say, oh, you didn't come, no stage performance for you. I'm not going to do that. That's not right. But there has to be some kind of way that we hold it accountable, saying it is important that you come. Because there are some classes where they register, and they'll come the first 2 months, we don't see him after that. And at the higher grades, 11th and 12th grade, we'll have graduation, people going by. And when I graduated here, one of our kids did a comedy routine. And he said, people will come up for their speeches. They'll come out and they'll say, I love everybody in the congregation. Balvihar is amazing. Swamiji, you're the best. And Swamiji's sitting there going, who is this kid? I've never seen him before. That was his comedy routine. And that's not far from the truth. It does happen where they may not attend at all. So that's one thing we really want to work on is attendance. So this forum is one way to really have that accountability. And one exciting thing about graduation this year, it's been formalized now this past month, is for the past few years, we've had our Chinmaya Mission graduations, one mass graduation, either at Mangalam or Chitrakoot, where it's all 75 kids graduating at once, photo op after photo op. There was a time when I was growing up in the mission, the most inspirational session of the year was the 12th grade graduation, where the whole congregation would be here. That whole session is just about the graduates. Each one of them says a few words. Who were their favorite teachers? What did they gain from Balvihar? And we recognize them showing where they're going to college, the big things they're going to do. It is a grand celebration. Because for those of you at the banquet, I said something last night where as we grow bigger, we need to get smaller. Because we're at the point now, even in the S2 session, take a minute, look around. How many people do you actually know here in this room? Maybe 10% of them? And you can say, oh, I haven't been here long. Long old-timers then, how many people do you know in the room? Only about 10% also. So it's not just that I'm new, I don't. The older people are also at fault here. We don't know each other. That's what happens. So through graduations that are smaller scale, things like this, at least the people in our sessions we get to know well, the kids we get to know. From there, at our pujas, utsavas, mahotsavas, we really get to meet each other and mingle. Because I made a visit to a smaller center recently up north. They have about 200 Balvihar kids. And it's not a huge Indian community. So the fact that they have 200 Balvihar kids is a big thing. They've worked hard to have that and to maintain it. There, everyone knows everyone. There's no bheda there. Everyone knows everyone. And in a place with a smaller Indian population, it's not like Dallas, for instance, any event you go to, Gujus with Gujus, Telugu with Telugu, Marathi with Marathi. It's not like that in those small places. They don't have that choice to make. Everyone mingles with everyone. And we're at a crossroads now where pretty soon most of our congregation, or a large part of it, will be those born and raised in this country. There will be a few from India, but that migration is not as high anymore. There will be a point, 20, 30 years from now, there will be a market shift. So we have to adapt and grow with that as well. Being that big tent, accepting everyone, not compromising on our values or what we teach. That has to be there firm according to the Guru's vision, but understanding dynamics and demographics will change. So the best thing we can do is make ourselves smaller. Even though we're growing to biggest heights, make our mission centers smaller. So with that, thank you so much for all your time and for being here. And I'm really excited for what's to come. It's going to be really, really good. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om.